Welcome to my channel, shavers and shavettes. I hope you are all doing well today. Taking a look at, as close as I can get to, kind of my average daily routine and just have a quick look at that. As always, before we get started, quick look at the gear. Just using an old Art of Shaving brush I got as a gift many years ago. I don't remember much about it. It's very thin, it doesn't perform well, but I still use it on occasion. Going with one of Holy Cause soaps today, outstanding performer, fantastic rose scent if that's what you're into. And the razor, a Gem Junior Bar lather catcher with a fresh Gem single edge razor. As you can see, we've got sync cam down at the bottom. There is some fascinating things going on here. It's definitely not because I overexposed the other camera beyond the point of repair. This is wonderful, trust me. So with the routine, first thing I do every time is give the brush a little rinse as I'm letting the water warm up. I don't know why I started doing that or when. It doesn't really accomplish anything. It's just habit for me right now, so I enjoy it. Next is splashing some water onto my face. Now, I do shave before I shower. So this right here with my microfiber cloth, I feel on my face, just getting my face wet, giving it a good rub down with the microfiber does a wonderful job of washing my face. The microfiber really performs well at grabbing onto any oil. If I've got dry skin going on, it does a great job at pulling off the little bits of skin that might cause issues during the shave. For me, it works, and I'll explain a little bit later too why I prefer to shave before I shower. After I fill up the sink though, then go ahead and splash some water again. This time the water just stays on my face. I don't wipe it off the second time. I do like to face lather. I face lather pretty much every single shave. I do like to start with a pretty dry brush. My goal when face lathering is not to build the lather on top of the soap. It's just to load the brush with a paste, soap paste, and then the lather gets built once the brush comes up to my face. Depending on the soap, depending on the brush, I do dip it in 2 or 3 times to continue to load. It just really depends. When it looks like I'm just pushing the paste around and I'm not actually building anymore and collecting it into the brush, that's when I'll go ahead and give it a little dip, start mixing around again. And when I feel like I've had enough of that soap paste loaded into the brush, I will try to scoop out as much as I can using just the bristles and then start lathering. Now, this is just the paste at this point. It is very dry and not very slick. If I were to try to shave with it, here's where I go in and just as needed, dip the tips of the brush into the water, work it in really thoroughly throughout the entire area until I feel like I've got a nice, moist, lubricating lather. Again, depending on the soap, depending on the brush, that's going to change with each variable how often I feel like I need to dip. Now, when it comes to shaving before showering, I know a lot of people recommend to go the other way. When I first got into wet shaving, however many years ago, I was showering, then shaving. And when I got into wet shaving, I experimented with all kinds of different products, all kinds of different techniques, different methods. I would switch it out for a couple of months, try one way, see how I like it, go back to the other way, shaving before showering, after, and for me, before the shower gives me far superior results. Now, I got curious one time. Shaving is a really big business, and one thing big businesses do is studies. A lot of scientific studies on whatever their product is, and shaving is no different. There are a lot of studies that look specifically at our whisker hair. How does water impact our shave exactly? Kind of interesting. Several studies I was able to find showed that the first 1 to 2 minutes after exposure to water is when the most moisture gets absorbed into the whiskers. After 4 minutes, there is no drastic change. So 4 minutes of exposure is the most water that will soak into your whiskers. I don't know about you, but my shower certainly lasts longer than 4 minutes. With traditional wet shaving with soap and brush, from the moment that you have the lather on your face, that is the exposure to water. Water is one of the 3 ingredients in our lather: soap, water, and air. That's all lather is. So I definitely hit that 4 minutes or about 4 minutes during the course of my shave. Another thing that I noticed, I never got a big drastic change if I were to shave before I showered or after, but the skin on my face certainly felt more fragile. It felt like I was getting a lot more nicks, a lot more cuts, a lot more irritation after I showered. And part of that is, I think, just the skin naturally softens up a little bit with the more moisture that you have, leaves it a little more prone to nicks and cuts during the course of a shave. But some other studies focus on skin friction, and not just shaving companies, but high-end clothing manufacturers as well have also funded a lot of studies on skin friction. An interesting thing that they found is the higher the moisture in the skin, and indeed the higher the humidity level in the room that you are in, directly impacts the friction. The friction levels go up with moisture. Now, they also experiment with lubrication, whether it's different oils, different synthetic lubricants, whatever the case may be. In our example, our lubrication is, of course, the lather. Obviously, lubrication helped to reduce that friction. However, with the moist skin in the high humidity air, the friction was always highest, regardless of what the lubrication was. The same lubrication in a dry environment worked much more effectively and brought the friction down as compared to that same lubricant in a high relative humidity area with high skin moisture. Now, at the end of the day, none of that matters. Everything about wet shaving is very subjective. Even the things that we can objectively measure, like the sharpness of a blade, has little to no impact on the community as a whole. The sharper the blade doesn't mean more people like it. The more dull the blade doesn't mean more people dislike it. Everything is objective. So what the studies say, what I am telling you, throw that out the window if it doesn't work well for you. Do what works well for you. Do what makes you happy. You're the only one experiencing your shave every day. Now, if you've seen probably any of my videos, you, I'm sure, will have noticed that I do like to do a 3-pass shave. My grain, the direction of my hair growth, I think is pretty average. I don't go up to a lot of people and inspect their hair growth directions. In fact, I'm the only one that I know for sure. But as far as I can tell from looking at forums, from watching other videos, it's pretty average. For the most part, I ignore the grain. Not completely, but at least for the first pass or two. First pass is, as much as I can, just straight top to bottom. Top to bottom across the cheeks, top to bottom down the neck, top to bottom on the chin and upper lip. Pass number 2 basically just flips that around, bottom up across most, if not everything. On my jawline on pass 2 is when I start to get a little more concerned about the grain. I will twist the edge of the razor across the jawline as I'm moving basically from the ear to the center of my chin. Just kind of twist that over to try to get as much consistent contact as possible. And then finally, on my third pass, that's when I start to go against the grain, or at least as close to as against the grain as possible that I can get. There are a couple of areas just to either side of the center line of my neck where my skin kind of dips in a little bit. Very large. I don't know, the size about the same size as the pad of my thumb on either side of the center line, just right underneath my chin. That is extremely difficult to get against the grain all the way. That area, it takes a pretty aggressive razor to be able to get into that and leave it very smooth. There's not a real convenient way that I have found, at least as far as stretching, to where I can get against the grain, completely against the grain, I should say. But most razors, I can work it out to where it's at least pretty decent results. I can't think of any razors off the top of my head that I completely change with. Depending on the type of razor, though, whether it's aggressive or very gentle, I might change that up a little bit. Oddly enough, with very gentle razors, I can't go completely against the grain. And I think it's more self-control, or lack of self-control more specifically. I try to push the razor to do more than what it physically can do. I end up putting a little too much pressure on the blade to try to get that contact that a more aggressive razor would have. And as a result, I get a lot of irritation and get a lot of nicks. Coming up to the end of the shave, we're starting to get everything finished off. Another great reason I love the microfiber, it's kept itself very effective throughout the entire course of the shave. I've got a very small area to work with, and it doesn't get oversaturated to where it's not completely drying the sink or my hands as I'm using it. Now, I'm not going to show complete cleanup, but we've all been there. It just takes a couple of minutes extra, and it's all done. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate everybody stopping by to check out the video. I hope you learned something or just made you think about something. Thank you so much. Have a great day.